I am an American, God-fearing communist. A lot of people have in the United States, especially I've noticed, believe that communism, a core aspect of communism is atheism, and that all communists are atheists, that atheism is part of communism. But that is propaganda by the United States to try to get people to be afraid and immediately reject something that is in their best interest. So before I get too much further, I just first want to give a quick warning. I don't know how much storage I have on my phone. I'm going to try to address everything here, but if time runs out, it'll be cut short. So, I was raised in what they call the Bible Belt, a region of the United States, the Southeast United States, where a lot of the people that live there still are descendants of the original colonizers who were super Christians, who were trying to escape the religious persecution in England and other places in Europe. Me, I'm not one of those descendants. All my family came here about 100 years ago, like before World War I. During those times, there was a big migration of European peoples to America, because Europe was really suffering at this time in a lot of places, from Italy and Spain, and we came to Ellis Island, New York. So the thing is that one thing that I was born in New York, and my mother moved us down to North Carolina. She found a new man, and I started going to church in North Carolina, and one of the big things they drilled into me was the understanding of the fear of God. Okay. Now it's hard. It was hard to wrap my head around when I was younger, but I still think I remember understanding it. That, God is a just and loving God, and God has unconditional love for you. But out of respect, and understanding of who God is, you're supposed to have this fear of God. And, and to a lot of people, I can understand the argument that this is used as an institution to control the masses, and I do believe that is true, but on a deeper sense, when people are conscious, even of that fact. For me, I'm conscious of that fact, but I still have the fear of God in my heart. The fear of God is something that's never left me. I stopped being a Christian many years ago, around the time I became an adult, a little bit before. But I always believed in God. It's just, I believe that different, one of the big things I was taught is that people that follow different religions are going to hell, that they're all made by demons, and I couldn't accept that, and now my faith has been for a long time that God can be found from, an infinite number of sources. Even though the religion itself may not be a representation of God, there's people there consciously searching for a connection to God. And so God can find people in those places, and anywhere there's a heart and a desire to know God, God can reveal themselves to that person, And so another thing I want to address here is the concept of Roko's basilisk, because this is a big part of my whole mind frame that I'm trying to convey here. Also, this it's called a thought experiment that I came across a few years ago, and it said that, and the way they relate it to like a computer system, but I used to use this as an analogy for God, And so I'll just tell you the computer theory thought experiment, that eventually there'll be a computer so powerful it can manipulate time and space. And so this computer, being self-aware and, has control of time and space, just goes back in time and eliminates everyone who, was working against its creation or not helping in its creation, And so even people, can be deleted from the history of time and space. So as a spiritual perspective, someone who's always believed in God personally, even though I stopped being a Christian long ago, I've always had this spiritual belief in God. I see this as God, at the end of creation, all the evil people who were working against the good, their soul will be like not deleted, but like refreshed, it's going to be made anew, bathed in the eternal fire to make it a new being, with a new slate. But the people who were part of the process of evolution, helping people and creating a better society, then those people will keep their, souls and their memories, And that seems like a far-fetched idea, especially probably for anyone who's an atheist, because there are a lot of communists who are atheists. So let me clarify that whole thing. Atheism, like I said, is not, one in one with communism. Just like atheism and physics don't go one in one with each other. There's a lot of physicists who believe in God, who have religious or spiritual beliefs, but they don't rely on superstitions given to them by their faiths to guide their physical material work. They rely on evidence and facts that they research and the real world effects that they can measure to create this science, which is a material science. So we can understand that there are a lot of physicists that are atheists, and there are a lot of physicists who are not atheists, and even there's a famous physicist, it was around the time of Albert Einstein. It wasn't Albert Einstein though. It was like I think it was another nuclear physicist or something. He's like, you start out your scientific career, not believing in God, but by the time you get to the end of the glass, you see God staring right back at you, and I didn't, that's not word for word, but you can look that up. Like a famous physicist said that, so the thing is, there's people who conduct material science in this world and engage in matters of material science for causes which can be on their own, inspired by many different reasons. Like we can say this is just who these people are, people who have a desire to change the lives of humanity for the better with science, whether it's for personal or religious reasons or whatever reasons. And Viktor Frankl, a survivor of the concentration camps, in World War II, a famous psychologist wrote about how, the belief in God can really inspire people, So the fact that communism is a materialist scientific approach to creating and running a truly workers' democratic government, government, and this is socialism. Communism is eventually where we evolve so far we don't need a government anymore. But we don't believe we can immediately go from a society with a ruling class, right now as it is, and just take out that government and then we'll just have peace and freedom. No, because then it's going to create a power vacuum and it's going to be another government, because the material conditions have to progress to the point that allows that to happen. So right now, what we strive to create is socialism, where it's a workers' democratic state. Okay, right now we have a dictatorship of the rich. Okay, a dictatorship of what some people call the elitist, the globalist, the top capitalists in our society have complete say in our democratic process. The average worker, the average American, truly has no say in our democratic process. And that's evident. Okay. Anyone can just like, yeah, you might have voted for Trump or Biden, but has anything that has actually impacted your life and made your life better? Have you ever voted for something that actually made real world change in your community, your environment, and your society, and seen that real world change? No. All of our tax money is going to the banks. It's going to the rich people, because the rich people pay the representatives to vote to allow the taxes that they take from us to go to them when they need it. When they need to be bailed out with the banks, or to spend so much money on the weapons manufacturer, and the war industry, and subjugating as many countries as we can, and all these billions we sent to fund these wars, none of us voted for that. Like, we literally, all these wars, decades, even the Vietnam War, it's not like, so many of these wars, not even Congress, who are supposed to be the representatives, voted on any of this. So even if we actually had an influence on our representatives, which we don't, they're bought and paid for. They're the same people from the same rich class. And even if we did, most of the stuff is not getting approved by Congress, period. You know what I'm saying? It's just people getting paid off at the top to send in all this military to another country. Just sign an executive order. And Obama did a lot of that. Every presidents did a lot of that. But the thing is, people don't realize that, behind the facade of Obama, acting like he wants change and a better society, he was ruthless, just like the Republicans were in bombing innocent people, in other countries. Like, he is responsible for the deaths of many innocent people that they've bombed to try to subjugate the countries and force a regime that they set up that allows them to extract the resources, pay the workers as little as possible, and take all those resources to the United States. A lot of countries have fought back and nationalized their oil or other assets and used that to benefit the people. Saudi Arabia is one of them, Dubai, and the United Arab Emirates. Okay. A lot of Arab countries have used this oil money to benefit their entire country. They nationalized it and took control, and they sell it. The government sells it to the United States themselves and uses that money and actually gives their people checks to live on. Like, a lot of people in these Arab countries, they get checks. Like, they literally don't have to work. Like, natural born citizens of these countries literally do not have, they work because they want to, because they have, aspirations to be a good member of society and do something for the society. But they don't have to work for money. They go for top level jobs. They get all the good jobs in the country. But where the United States has the power, and the country's weak, sometimes they can go in there and fund terrorist organizations, to take over these countries and make the laws, like literally just pass laws that allow the United States to just buy the land there, and then privately own that land and extract all the resources without, maybe they'll pay a little tax, but that tax money goes straight to the people at the top. Regardless, my point of this video was not really to try to convince you about socialism and communism, because that's what my life's purpose is. So, I'm going to be doing that, always doing that. But my point is to um, show the truth that, and there has been a lot of historical, religious or spiritual, people who believe in God who are communist or socialist. I was just watching another video about Gaddafi. Go to my channel, go to my YouTube channel. There's one video, I think it's in Marxism, Leninism, or one of my playlists. It says Muammar Gaddafi documentary. So on my channel, I re-uploaded it from another channel, and it really shows you, what Gaddafi's government did for the people of Libya, for the average everyday people, and that they had a democratic process and a voice in that government, and Gaddafi was a very God-fearing man. He invoked the name of God in his speeches, and he was a holy man. He really believed in God and loved God and knew he was doing God's mission on this earth, and he died a martyr. And it's so powerful. Fidel Castro has always believed in God. He was a Catholic for most of his life, but he's always believed in God, even if he doesn't claim to be a Catholic, and just look at how God blessed his life. They say that the CIA attempted hundreds of assassination attempts against him. If that's not a biblical story, if that's not a legend to go in a biblical text, this God-loving, God-fearing man did what was best for the people of his country and stood tall to the biggest military power in the world, who sent hundreds of different attempts, mercenaries, assassins, to try to take him out, but they never could. That man was blessed by God. And at the end of life, he said, I've lived all these years and I've never seen it as the result of any effort, but luck, It was God who blessed him, And so the thing is that there's a lot of people in history. There's a lot of people currently, including myself, who it's their fear of God and their acknowledgement that we are on this earth for a purpose, and God wants us to follow that purpose. When I was a young man, I prayed to God so many times on the altar, a Free Will Baptist church. You make the altar call, people come down and pray at the altar. I would ask God to use my life for his purpose, and to serve him, And the thing is, that same God who I pray to is the same God that I have a great relationship with now. And a lot of people who are actually not the descendants, who are only bound to this, spirituality by, the religion and the text, which were pushed by Rome, and imposed on them by Rome, changed by Rome. They're the ones that taught me it. But then, I gradually began to understand more as I got older that I am a descendant of Moses and I am a descendant of Abraham, And the thing is, the history of our people was a history of trying to free ourselves from slavery and live in peace, to have prosperity and peace and happiness, and the thing is, I've done a lot of spiritual ancestral work the past few years, and there's a lot of my communist friends that are atheists, but a lot of them who aren't, who believe in God as strongly as I do. My atheist communist friends just think this is complete nonsense, but a lot of them can respect it and don't hate on it. But the thing is, I believe I have a connection with my ancestors and a connection with God. And, you know, it's always been in many biblical stories that I was taught as a child, you know, and I believe that even through this Roman interpretation and this, you know, changed doctrine, you know, that was manipulated by the Romans, even through that Bible that was changed so many times, people can still find God and find the truth in the overall message in some stories, you know. And one of those really important to me is there's so many stories in the Bible about the church itself being corrupt, the fundamental viewpoint of not only one or two churches, but the church, the main ideology of the cult of God, the group of people who profess to be doing their best to devoting themselves to God and having a relationship and understanding with this force that is God, has been fundamentally astray, you know, preaching wrong messages, you know, and forsaking, you know, the truth of God and who God is and what God's message truly is. And then God communicates with somebody with a pure heart, with a true desire, and multiple people at the same time. God will always communicate with people. But in the stories, it tells you the story of this one person who had this pure heart and desire to know and understand God's will on this earth and submit themselves completely to that will. And that's what I've spent my whole life trying my best to do, because from a young age, I was taught that this is the best way to, you know, be the most favored by God, you know, and you know, this is the way that it should be. And I was also thinking before I made this video, one of the things I wanted to say was, you know, what I was taught in church growing up, you know, basically a man that does not fear God can't always be a good man, you know. You know, it's like, and like I said before, there's a lot of people who would argue the institutional implications of this belief and how people have used it for their advantage to oppress people. And I agree with that. And so I think, like I said earlier, we need to anyone who understands this and still has this fear of God, because for me, it's a fundamental part of who I am. And it's, you know, I could try to change it, you know what I'm saying? But still, I don't think I could change it completely. It's something that's in my belief system that I don't need to change. And that if I tried to change it, in the back of my mind, I would always be like, oh, what if it is true, right? Is the fear of God, you know, and you could call it also the belief in karma. But on a deeper level, the fear of God is also the understanding that, you know, we are here for a purpose, and we are either pursuing that true purpose that God has for us and the true plan that God has for our life, or we are being led astray. You know, there's only two options. So if you're not completely understanding it and knowing in your walk with God and your understanding with God, then you are astray, you know. And it takes a cautious devotion, you know, to have this intention to truly serve. And serving God means serving not yourself, but everything around you, serving the nature, serving the people, serving the broader society you're part of, and trying to have a positive impact. Because, and this goes into Marxism, because Marxism states, and in Marxism we understand that the world is made up of a bunch of contradicting forces, and the interplay of all these forces is what creates our reality. So no matter if you